So picture this. It's December 17th, 2025, and President Trump makes this totally unexpected announcement that gets everyone talking: a special cash payment for every single U.S. service member. But, this warrior dividend, as he called it, is about way more than just a holiday bonus. It's really the opening chapter in a much bigger story about military pay, politics, and the raw nature of presidential power. Right there, in a live TV address from the White House, President Trump lays out the plan. I mean, the timing, just before Christmas, and that symbolic number, 1776, it was all clearly designed for maximum impact. He even said the checks are already on the way. It was this sudden, really dramatic gesture. But what did it actually add up to? Well, the total price tag comes out to an estimated $2.5 billion. With a B. That is a massive expenditure, announced without any sort of prior thumbs up from Congress. The president just said the money would come from tariff revenues. So who exactly got a piece of this pie? According to the White House, the payout covers almost everybody. We're talking 1.3 million active duty personnel plus reservists who are on longer-term active orders. The cutoff is pay grade 06, which means it includes everyone from a brand new private all the way up to colonels and Navy captains. So, yeah, unless you're a general or an admiral, you gotta check. Okay, a payment of $1,776 is definitely nice. Nobody's gonna complain about that. But it's really just one tiny piece of this enormous and frankly often misunderstood system of military compensation. To really get what this dividend is all about, we have to first understand what a service member's pay actually looks like. To get a sense of the scale here, just look at the total annual cost. A Congressional Budget Office report found that the Department of Defense and the Department of Veterans Affairs, together, were on track to spend around $350 billion in a single year on compensation. That's for current and former military personnel. It's a truly staggering figure. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Look at how that money breaks down for your typical enlisted service member. You might think it's all about the paycheck, right? But the cash part, that's basic pay and allowances, makes up less than half of their total compensation. The rest of it is this mix of non-cash benefits like healthcare right now and deferred benefits like retirement and VA support that they'll get down the road. When the Pentagon talks about cash pay, they've got a special term for it: regular military compensation, or RMC. And this is a key detail. RMC isn't just a salary. It bundles their basic pay with allowances for things like housing and food that are, get this, tax-free. That tax advantage gives their actual take-home pay a huge boost, and it makes comparing it to a regular civilian job pretty tricky. And this brings us right to the heart of the matter, the big question that the president's dividend raises. Is a bonus like this even necessary? I mean, how does military pay, when you look at the whole package, really stack up against what someone could earn in the civilian world? Is the military actually struggling to compete? Well, the Department of Defense actually has a very clear target for this. The official goal is for that regular military compensation, the cash pay we just talked about, to be at or above the 70th percentile of what civilians with similar age and education are making. In other words, military cash pay is designed to be better than what 70% of their peers make. So, are they hitting that goal? Oh yeah. According to the CBO's analysis, the answer is a huge, resounding yes. Just look at this chart. The top line there is the military RMSC for enlisted folks. And the line below it, that's not the 70th percentile benchmark, that's the 90th percentile of civilian pay. As you can see, military cash compensation doesn't just meet its target, it blows right past it. So what does all this mean? It means the CBO found that for most enlisted personnel, their cash compensation is so high that only the top 10% of their civilian peers earn more. The data is pretty clear. From a pure cash standpoint, the military isn't just competitive, it's an incredibly high-paying career path. Okay, so the warrior dividend shows one way a president can deal with the military, through money, acting as a benefactor. But that's only one side of the coin. There's another, much more direct way a president uses his power over the armed forces, and it raises a completely different and maybe more troubling set of questions. You can think of the dividend as the carrot, but the executive branch also has the stick, the power to deploy troops. And a recent legal fight over a domestic deployment in Los Angeles shows just how controversial that power can be. This isn't my opinion, this is a direct quote from a U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer. He issued this really stark warning when he ruled that President Trump's use of military troops for law enforcement in LA was illegal. He was raising alarms about blurring the lines between what soldiers do and what police do.
At the core of this whole thing is a law that's been around since 1878, the Posse Comitatus Act. Its entire point is to stop the U.S. military from being used as a domestic police force. It's a really fundamental principle in America.
In his ruling, Judge Breyer was incredibly specific about why the deployment was illegal. He straight up barred troops from performing a whole list of actions that are police work, period. Things like crowd control, blocking off traffic, doing searches and seizures, all actions the judge found the troops were, in fact, being ordered to do. And the judge's reasoning was just razor sharp. He basically concluded that the official justification for sending in the troops was, well, that it was manufactured. As you can see right here, he found there was no rebellion, no emergency that civilian police couldn't handle. He argued the whole point was just to establish a military presence to enforce federal law. So how do we tie these two things together? On the one hand, you have a surprise cash bonus for the troops. And on the other, you have a federal court saying a domestic military deployment was illegal. What does all this tell us about the relationship between the presidency and the armed forces today? When you put these two actions right next to each other, you get this really complex picture. On one side, you've got the president as the benefactor, handing out cash, a clear act of political goodwill. And on the other, you've got the president as the commander, using that same military for domestic purposes in a way a federal court called an illegal overreach of power. And that leaves us with this really fundamental question, one that gets right to the heart of American democracy. Is the U.S. military becoming a political tool, something to be rewarded or deployed for partisan reasons? Or can it stay what it's supposed to be, a national institution separate from the politics of the day? It's a huge question, and one worth thinking about. Thanks for joining me.